for us who spent a significant amount of time in the compound specifically, there was not a lot of things put in place to help you develop or to grow. You're just basically sitting there stressing over the next court date. And then after that court date comes, either you're mad or sad, or you're going through a variety of things in that moment, and you're trying to cope with it for me as a 17-year-old. And sometimes you need something to grasp. You need something to hold on to. Honestly, my perspective and what I experienced, I didn't have any staff bringing out my talents or strengths. That didn't exist. It's still kind of cold. It's still kind of cynical. And that's the reality of that environment, is there's, we're the cops and you're in jail.
Myself, don't remember a time where I really reached out to probation staff or I pulled them aside to talk. I feel like most of my like healing came from CBOs that were allowed into the program, building up that work ethic before I came home, being able to work from 8 to 5, come back, shower, go to school from 5:30 to 9:45, and then you would shower. So like that's what most of your day looked like in fire camp, which really just kept me busy and on my feet and my mind away from, I think, being incarcerated, because most of the time was spent in the community, cleaning up, helping out in events, and that really just helped in the transition and coming home.
A youth gets out of care, they don't have that family support system, and they don't have a decent paying job. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna go back to doing something that could wind them back from the place they just left from. So as long as they have options, I should say, they should be able to pick something that they want to do, something they're interested in, because that's going to motivate them to pay attention and soak up all the information while they can.
There were no fights happening in fire camp because the respect level was there. The team building really helped me connect with my peers and develop those relationships with peers and just get through the overall system.
I consider saving innocence, all the advocates, like my fairy godmothers. I tell them that all the time. They helped me transform into the woman I am today, I should say.
A program I participated in was an addiction counseling program where we went through I think it was like an 18-week course where, it was like intensive counseling with each other though. And we built a space and a community around each other where we shared some personal things and we began to work through, addictions and trauma and as well as like these ideologies that we developed growing up in these areas, toxic masculinity, a variety of topics that we're able just to work through and be able to leave a little more whole and leaving and healing from a lot of the damage that we've experienced in life. Because people who end up in jail are not they didn't just wake up one day and decide to be a criminal. Like it's a series of events that happened in somebody's life that led them to make the decisions that they made.
We spend a lot of focus punishing folks that have already been punished by life, whose families and ancestors have lived in cycles of generational trauma, right? And those cycles of generational trauma include things like domestic violence, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, right? Just locking somebody up and letting them out does not change the landscape of people's lives. If you're gonna have us in here punishing us basically for how life turned out, at least use the time to build us up so we are not doomed to the same thing when we're released.
I want to just say to the panelists, specifically those impacted by the system, thank you for being great advocates.
I would really like to put on a call to action. So this is not just another panel, a call to action on how we can start getting more programming, especially the vocational skills.
I'm tired of talking when we need programs for these kids. We need to feed their minds, their brains, because talking is great, but I prefer action.